Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Aaron Rodgers won't need surgery for his wrist, but the Steelers still need to figure things out fast. Also, the red-hot Pistons faced off against the Hawks, and Lane Kiffin might be quitting on Ole Miss.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Pittsburgh Steelers enter a pivotal stretch in their season, but will they be doing it without Aaron Rodgers for a bit? Here to talk about that with me is Chris Carter, the host of Locked On Steelers. And Chris, obviously the news in Pittsburgh right now is, I guess, waiting and seeing if Aaron Rodgers will be available for this week after his injury. Can you kind of take us through the latest on what he's going through, how serious the injury is, and if you think Pittsburgh is going to have him this week or not?
So, from what we understand, the injury is not serious in the way that it's going to guarantee that he won't play. Now, he won't practice Wednesday with the team, but Mike Tomlin made it very clear they are definitely considering him to start against the Bears this weekend, even going so far as saying that, like, hey, he might practice Thursday or Friday, but that'll be the guide for them to see if he's ready to go. Now, of course, the Steelers aren't going to force him to play when he doesn't want to, but you know Aaron Rodgers. There's a bit of petty in that man. And now he gets to play the Bears, who he has owned throughout his entire career. He wants to play this game. He bragged about being able to play the Bears in the offseason before he even officially signed with the Steelers, when it was basically he knew he was signing with the Steelers. So he's been looking forward to this game all season long. But I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this plays out. But I will say this, the Steelers are not in a situation like Aaron Rodgers wanted to come back in after halftime when he got hurt and he had that slight wrist fracture on his non-throwing hand against the Bengals. But the team held him out. And part of why they held him out is because they're confident in Mason Rudolph. And I mean, the Steelers have had several years where Mason Rudolph has come to the rescue, played good backup quarterback football. He might be the best or one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I mean, back in 2023, they were 7-7. Kenny Pickett got hurt. They put Mason Rudolph, and he was so much better than Kenny Pickett in those games that they left him in, and they finished 3-0 to start the season and made the playoffs. And so, they're confident with him in their offense. And look, he came out in the second half, and they converted 5 of 6 third downs. And granted, it was the Bengals defense, but he was able to orchestrate the offense. He didn't do too much, didn't turn the ball over. They had 2 drives that took up over 13 and a half minutes of play. And sometimes that was because of his good decision-making to just take what's there in Arthur Smith's offense. So they're confident with Mason Rudolph. They're not going to shake on that, but best believe they want Aaron Rodgers back in the lineup. And if he says he wants to play and the doctors give him the okay, the Steelers are going to let him play.
Now, what has the Aaron Rodgers experience actually been like this season for the Steelers? And it was the talk of the offseason. It was like, all right, well, it's not a matter of if, it's when this is going to happen. It finally happens. And Steelers, obviously, the thing for them honestly, you can go back a little bit, is like, all right, they're going to start really fast, great start to the season. But then as the year goes on, sometimes they slow down and that results in losses. And obviously they're in a situation right now. They're up 1 game on the Ravens. They still have 2 divisional matchups to play against each other. How has Rodgers looked to you so far this season? And if it is Mason Rudolph, how big of a drop-off is that actually for them?
Rodgers is making some interesting reads throughout the year. Like there have been times where he seems to still have that high level football IQ, quarterback, field general type vision where he sees things coming before they happen. He delivers the ball on time. The Steelers are intentionally having him have a quick release because they don't want him holding on to the ball. But sometimes you see him hold on to the ball because he wants to make the big play, because he still wants to make the big throw. But this offense is designed to try to give the Steelers playmakers chances to get yards after the catch. And that's what DK Metcalf does at best. That's what the Steelers running backs do really well, Kenneth Gainwell and Jalen Warren. They love that out of Pat Fryermuth. Both Calvin Austin and Roman Wilson are 4.3 speed guys that when they have the ball in their hands, they're dangerous. That's what the Steelers want to do. Now, for a good chunk of the season, I think Aaron Rodgers was executing that. I really think with the Chargers game and the first half of this Bengals game, he started to not do that. And I noted that on Locked On Steelers, like they need him to get back to what he was doing in some of these other games, because there were games where he was just taking what's there, and that was leading the Steelers to move the ball pretty efficiently. But I think that they're trusting that he's going to be able to get back to that. Aaron Rodgers is a student of the game. He's not a guy who has many bad games in a row. He bounces back. Even in the seasons that he's had a rough, he often finds a way to get back in it, learn from his mistakes, and quickly adapt to how teams are facing him. So I think that's what the Steelers are going to be excited to have back. And frankly, like a lot of the things that have been said about Aaron Rodgers and the notes that you maybe have from a national perspective. I know notes I had from a national perspective of not when I didn't cover him. I was wondering, man, that guy seems petty. He's the side looks he gave Robert Saleh, but none of that has crept into the Steelers. Now he will chew people out, like he chewed Roman Wilson out, Steelers second-year receiver who ran a route short of the end zone on third down, and he was kind of like that. I was throwing you the ball because I was expecting you to be in the end zone, but you ran short of it, and that ruined the whole play. And so you could see him chew a guy out in that situation, but he holds people accountable. He praises them for their hard work, and it doesn't come off as fake to a lot of people. And I think that's a big thing for the Steelers is they want a leader who is going to be vocal, but also be trusted. And there's a respect for him that's in the room beyond just, that's Aaron Rodgers, you have to respect him. It's how he conducts himself and what the expectations he sets for his teammates. And so when he's on the field, he's pushing that. Now, Mason Rudolph is a guy where he understands the offense and everyone knows him. Everyone appreciates him. He's been in Pittsburgh since 2018. He spent 1 year away from the team last year and came right back to the Steelers. And I think that's where Mason Rudolph is comfortable, is that he knows this team trusts him. He knows the front office trusts him. The coaches trust him, and he knows how to play what what Mike Tomlin needs from his backup quarterback. He doesn't, make the big throw if it's there, but if it's double covered, don't force it. You let your playmakers be playmakers. And so the Steelers are confident with this quarterback balance that they have. Do they want better play from Aaron Rodgers than they've gotten the last game and a half? Yes, but I think they're also confident they'll get it from him. And I get the sense that as long as the word that Mike Tomlin used in his Tuesday press conference when we were talking to him was functionality. If Aaron Rodgers goes into that Thursday or Friday practice and he's zipping the ball and you're not seeing that non-throwing wrist really impact his ability to take the snap, drop back, see the field, move around the way, how he needs to, then he'll play. But if you see it impact any of those core functions of what he does as a quarterback, then you'll probably say, hey, Aaron, we appreciate you, but we got to rest you because we need you for down the stretch when the Steelers still have to play both their games against the Ravens, and they have other big games against the Bills and the Lions coming up as well.
Stay up to date all year on the Pittsburgh Steelers by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Steelers on your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today coming up. The Pistons traveled to face the Hawks. Before we get to that, Steph Curry and the Warriors were tested by the Magic. The NFL season is rolling along, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for this weekend with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet, player props, building a same-game parlay, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. The Warriors went to Orlando to take on the Magic.
This is Philip Rossman-Reich, the host of Locked On Magic here at the Kia Center. The Orlando Magic defeat the Golden State Warriors 121-113 in a game that was very much the exact lesson they needed to learn after their overtime loss against Houston Rockets on Sunday. The details that were missing, those missed free throws, those bad turnovers, those bad opportunities, those bad shots, the getting loose on defense in the fourth quarter, that did not happen in this game, and there's no better play to exemplify that than Anthony Black. Anthony Black finishes with 21 points plus 18, 8 for 13 from the floor, 5 for 7 from beyond the arc. He didn't make a three-pointer. The Magic didn't shoot the ball well. They were 4 for 10 in the first quarter. They only made 4 more threes, 4 for 22 the rest of the game, but the Magic dominated in the paint with 64 points in the paint. They attacked, they stayed aggressive, they stayed on the front foot. They didn't let Stephen Curry get going, although he had a great first half and was a constant source of attention. They made everyone else beat them. The Warriors could not do that. A huge win, a very nice win, proving that the Magic are still on the right track and moving closer to the team that everyone thinks they can be.
The Lakers look to get an easy win over the Jazz.
This is Andy Kamenetsky, co-host of the Locked On Lakers podcast, and the Lakers get a 140-125 win over the Jazz in Utah. LeBron James and Gabe Vincent, meaning the roster is now fully intact, they both return to the court, and after about 30 minutes of bad defense and what felt like tentative, we don't want to step on each other's toes offense. Everyone just kind of let it rip, and the Lakers proceeded to bury Utah. LeBron looked like he's still not all the way back physically or with his conditioning, but still had 11 points and 12 assists against just one turnover in 30 minutes, had 6 assists in the fourth quarter, put on a passing clinic. Luka Doncic, 37 points, 10 assists, and 4 steals. The Lakers will now have between Wednesday and Saturday off, where they can continue to practice, get in sync, and work out some of the kinks as they get everybody back on the same page. For more Lakers coverage, make sure you're watching Locked On Lakers on YouTube and listening wherever you get your podcasts.
The Suns squared off against the Blazers.
The Phoenix Suns get a nationally televised W, defeating the Portland Trail Blazers 127-110. Let's talk about it. First things first, it cannot be overstated how important of a W this is for the Phoenix Suns. I had a preseason prediction for this team. I always thought that they would be a play-in team, but obviously I might have been wrong on that a little bit, and I'll get to that in just a second. But if the Suns are going to be a play-in team and not make the playoffs, even though they're playing really well right now, they're going to be jousting for positioning with teams like the Grizzlies, teams like the Blazers, teams like the Mavs or the Clippers, and these games matter. You have to get these wins against these teams and create some separation with them, so when you go up against a really tough gauntlet, you have a little bit of things to play with or room to maneuver, where if you lose a couple of games, you're not fighting for positioning late in April because you took care of business in October, November, and the first part of December. And so the Suns winning this game, going up against a Trailblazers team that they're going to be jousting with positioning for all year long, it matters, guys. It truly matters for a team that's just trying to get into the play-in or potentially be a playoff team. Now, I always thought this team was going to be better than the national public did, and I should think that. I cover this team. I watch this team every single night. However, my analysis was I just thought this team was going to be suffocating defensively and have Devin Booker late in games to where he will make 1 or 2 plays to help get them over the top and win some games that maybe they should have lost. But guys, how many times do they need to be up at minimum 18 plus points at any point in a game over the last 9 games, which they have done, for me to say that they're just a good offensive team? On Locked On Suns, I'm like, don't get used to this. This doesn't feel like what the Suns would be, but it's really great that they're doing this right now. They keep getting up and getting up big against teams and not letting go of leads. Yeah, they let go of one against the Atlanta Hawks, whatever. Every team does that. But it never came close to happening tonight, which means they're learning. Every team gives up 20 plus points. Can you learn from those experiences? And the Suns just stomped the lights out of the Blazers in the second half. They were, physical to the point of attack. They ran away with this W. And they didn't even have to use guys like Devin Booker. They were shorthanded. No Jalen Green, no Grayson Allen, and they're still winning games. And the Suns are creating separation and making you feel a lot better about a potential play-in or hell, maybe just outright playoff berth.
And the Spurs tried life without Victor Wembanyama against the Grizzlies.
Hey, this is Jeff Garcia with Locked On Spurs here at the Frost Bank Center after the Spurs beat the Grizzlies 111-101. Without Victor Wembanyama. And although it was a rocky start, they were in a fight. Memphis was leading at 1 point. Spurs were down. The Spurs took control in the fourth period, and that's where the game begins for your Spurs. Holding Memphis to 14 points, outscoring them 25-14 in the final frame. And it came down to attention to discipline. Mitch Johnson said after the game that he noticed a lot of lack of discipline in the first half, third period. He said it kind of came on in that fourth period where they were showing effort, energy, just more attention to detail. That was a difference. As far as the players are concerned, Harrison Barnes was a huge key in that final frame, hitting the key 3, hitting a dunk. Yes, Unk can still get up, although he did tell me he's retired from NBA All-Star Dunk Contest. But nevertheless, he was a huge spark, as well as Keldon Johnson. You know what? This was just a collective. Without 2 stars, Wemby and Castle, the Spurs were able to put up a good fight and get the W. Leading the way for the Spurs was De'Aaron Fox with 26 points, Harrison Barnes with 23. You also had Keldon Johnson with 18 and Kelly Olynyk with 10 points. All in all, great win for the Spurs. This is a team that's showing its depth, that it can handle life without two stars, Victor and Stefan. They have enough firepower to weather the storm, hold down the fort until they come back. So all in all, great effort. Team-wise, they came together, rallied behind their veterans, Fox and Barnes, got a W. We'll see if they can duplicate this Thursday against the Hawks.
The Red Hot Pistons traveled to Atlanta to face off against the Hawks on Tuesday night. Locked On Pistons hosts Ku Kahil reacted to Detroit's night in State Farm Arena.
Host of Locked On Pistons podcast, Ku Kahil here. The Detroit Pistons win their 10th straight game of the season. They are now 12-2. They sit at the top of the Eastern Conference still, and they did this without, again, Kay Cunningham, without Asar Thompson, without Tobias Harris. They did this without numerous key players, their best player, another one of their top 3 players, and they continue to go on this win streak, went 10 straight. Jalen Durham returned in this game. He had 31 points, completely dominated the Indiana Pacers, and got paid back for Brandon Knight after a posterizing dunk on Benedict Mathurin, just like the one DeAndre Jordan gave Brandon Knight 14 years ago. Finally got paid back for that. It took long enough. He had a fantastic game. Dennis Jenkins headed into this game, averaging 20 points and 7 assists. He ended this game with 26 points and 7 assists. He played extremely well, and Javonte Green had 20 points. If I told you that in Game 14, the Pistons' leading scorers would be Jalen Durham, Dennis Jenkins, Javonte Green, and Kay Cunningham, Asar Thompson, Tobias Harris, Jaden Ivey, and Marcus Sasser would all be out, you would have thought that the Pistons were hovering around 500, but instead, they are 12-2, 10-game win streak. Detroit basketball is back.
Stay up to date all year on the Detroit Pistons by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Pistons on YouTube or your favorite podcast app. Coming up, Lane Kiffin might be bailing on Ole Miss. Ole Miss head coach Lane Kiffin has been rumored to be mulling his coaching options over. Locked On Ole Miss host Stephen Willis speculated over whether or not Kiffin would leave the Rebels to go elsewhere in the SEC.
So we did a show yesterday about taking Lane Kiffin at his word, and that the playoffs were the one thing that he was looking forward to, and all of that stuff, how important that game would be to Lane Kiffin. And that is where a lot of my opinion has been developed from, knowing that Lane Kiffin wants to coach that game as a head coach more than anybody else. He is a hyper, super competitive dude. He wants to be a head coach in that game, lining up against Marcus Freeman or Mario Cristobal or whoever in a college football playoff type environment. He wants to be Nick Saban. So based off of that, my opinion was that that is going to be his guiding light through all of this. He was going to coach in that game. And so we did a video on it based off of that. And I believe that that game was the end-all be-all that I thought it was. You didn't have to worry about anything until at least January, because Ole Miss is likely going to play December 19th and 20th. They're likely going to play then on January 1st or 2nd. And then after that, who knows what happens? Whatever's going on there, you can get it figured out. Well, I started listening to some of the podcasts from around the other schools, the Alley Peak podcast from Florida, Locked On LSU, Matt Moscona, the Chase and Neil podcast, the Spirit Bend podcast. And you started to put it together, and it was like, wait a second. I literally think he might quit on his team. He might literally quit on his team. And that is so interesting. And everybody might point out, it's like people take coaching jobs all the time, or why won't he be allowed to coach on the sideline? No team is going to have a conference rival get all of the commercial pub from that game and have their coach on the sideline. I think it was Bo Schembechler said, something about Michigan men only are going to coach our teams, not Arizona State or whoever's coach. And it's created a potentially unprecedented position in college football. And yeah, cool thing that Lane Kiffin becomes kind of the face of that, essentially, but it is what it is. And if Lane Kiffin quits
which, make no mistake, he would quit. The ball is in Lane's court because Keith Carter did something that was absolutely unbelievable. I think, personally, this is my opinion, that Lane Kiffin was going to try and have his cake and eat it too, which means he is feeding Keith Carter just enough information to keep Keith happy, lies about what's going on, keeps it quiet, coaches the playoff game. So he gets to have his cake and eat it too. And it makes sense that Lane Kiffin thought he could get away with that because Keith Carter and nobody else has said no to him for the better part of the last 6 years. So, of course, he thought he could get away with it. But Keith Carter, to the surprise of everybody, and I've heard this from multiple different places, Keith Carter put an ultimatum on Lane Kiffin to where he had to sign the extension by a certain time. And the deadline of that is there's 24 hours each direction on that, if you want to go into that. Or he would get fired and would not be allowed to coach in the playoffs. If, for any reason, Lane Kiffin takes a job at Florida or LSU, if he took a job there tomorrow, he would not be allowed to coach in the Egg Bowl. Keith Carter has drawn a line in the sand and said, this is what we're going to do. And this is how it's going to happen because we can't let you string us along like you were obviously planning on doing. Now, is there a chance he could end up back at Ole Miss? Yeah, absolutely. But with this deadline, you've got a rush of kind of going through the job search in a hurry. Stuff that is normally quiet, that they keep under wraps, is now out in the open, just unbelievably out in the open. Lane Kiffin's family going down to Gainesville and touring a high school. Lane Kiffin's family down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, I think currently as I record. All of that gets done under wraps if it's a normal coaching search. But that lets you know exactly how serious Lane Kiffin is in regards to getting out of Ole Miss. Now, the rumor is Florida has a Godfather level offer for Lane Kiffin, like 6 years, $15 million per year, $90 million guaranteed on the table. Boom. Can't say no. It's Jimbo Fisher level contract. Florida's doing it 3 years after Jimbo is no longer there. And if they're down in LSU right now, you've got a bidding war that's about to start. If that $15 million per year, $90 million guaranteed, I guarantee you it's $15.5 and $95 million guaranteed. They're going to end up spending $20 million for Lane Kiffin, a coach, by the way, that if he takes one of those jobs, still will not have coached a college football playoff game. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And I credit Keith Carter for being the person with the Ole Miss interests at heart. He did an excellent job of looking out for Ole Miss throughout all of this, through all of the games, the trolling. You had boosters coming out talking about Lane Kiffin. Lane Kiffin's got some serious damage repair to do if he decides to keep his job. But it increasingly looks like he's kind of burnt that bridge, and it almost feels like he's trying to burn that bridge, if it makes sense.
If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, the Kansas City Chiefs are in a bad spot right now. Can they capitalize on their upcoming schedule? So at least until tomorrow, stay locked on sports today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.